So we have young Josh Harrison here, who I'm sure you know from many videos that we've done together, and we're back at Brighton Electric. And we're going to explore some stuff of our music, some Produce Like a Pro stuff, and here we have one of Josh's tracks. But what we wanted to get into first was really how the plugin works, of course, but the layout of it, because initially when I opened it up, I was like, what does all of this do? So we had a little bit of an inside track and spoke to the lovely people, well, one person, Jeeve, who's sitting behind me, at Soundtheory, and just kind of got into the massive details of this. So, Josh, I'm going to throw you under the bus to kind of go through what this can do at a quite granular level.
The first thing I want to kind of start with is the top left-hand corner. We can kind of see it's got this three-way mixer, basically. It kind of stands out as a unique selling function of this. We have a center point which you can control either completely unaffected or the dry side, and you can go to a single band or one band kind of saturation or one band.
That's a very important thing. When I first heard single, I thought it was going to take one of the bands and leave the rest alone. But what it means is, it means the whole thing.
Yeah, a broad application of the effect across the whole entire frequency spectrum. And then we can move it over to the multi-section where we have independent controls for three different bands, a low shift, mid shift, and high shift. The interesting thing about this is it allows you to have, rather than just a kind of parallel dry and wet effect, you actually can have a lot of options between parallel just dry and multi-band, or half and half between the single band and the dry, or you can go somewhere between the three where you get a little bit of the unprocessed, a little bit of the single band processing, and a little bit of the multi-band processing. So in regard to that, it's extremely flexible. The next thing you'll see is this kind of large histogram on the screen. And you might think this is kind of familiar to a compression ratio thing, and it is. Often with saturation and clipping plugins and all this kind of stuff, there's a threshold that's reached at which the effect is applied, very similar to compression. And a really cool thing about this plugin specifically is that we can actually control the position of each of these bands independently. So you kind of get three separate threshold controls for each of these different frequencies.
And all those frequencies can be set at the very top there.
So the default settings here are the crossover point for the low is at 350 hertz, and the crossover point between the mid and the high is at 3.5K, but these can be tweaked as well. We're going to start with it in the default setting, but you can just change that if you want to up there as well. The next thing we have is an overall drive control, which is essentially like an input gain on a saturator. You turn it up and you get more drive. Now, some of you out there will like to work in a kind of matched mode. So as you turn the drive up, it's not going to affect the volume. It means you can kind of more easily hear the effect of the plugin without being persuaded by the volume. So we'll probably try playing with that on and off. Though if you don't want to use that and you want to set your gain yourself and do your own gain staging, there is control of the output gain in the bottom right-hand corner down here. The next thing we look at are these two parameters down here, the offset and the knee. So you're probably familiar with a knee control on a compressor or a limiter, and it's very similar. Essentially, it's a variable control of the effect throughout different levels of volume. So if we increase the knee here, we can see that it's softening the shape of the curve, and therefore at even lower volumes we get some of the saturation being applied, and then at higher volumes it kind of fades out and reduces. So that's what the knee control does, and the offset is very similar. They both affect this shape of the curve, but the offset, as you can kind of see, starts to introduce this saturation at a much quieter volume, so it will actually affect the quieter sounds in your mix, kind of like tails of reverbs or tails of drums and things like that. So you'll start to hear more of it applied on the quiet sounds. Now, it will take some ear training to be able to perceive this stuff. It's not always the most intuitive for new producers, but it's got enough options and enough flexibility in there that it can actually teach you a lot.
There's a part of me that thinks the offset actually probably at 100% is probably one of the most useful things, because it's going to be a more even application of the saturation. Because traditionally, saturation happens in mids, high mids in particular, and high end. That's where we hear typically
the harmonics. Yeah, so you can kind of think about an arrangement of a song or an audio file. You might see the drums kind of poking above in the waveform. Without the offset or the knee control, you can essentially just target those louder transients and just have the saturation being applied to the kick and snare drum, which might poke above the rest of the mix. However, if we introduce that offset, you'll start noticing that it's not just the kick and snare that are going over the threshold, it's actually things that are lower down, but it's not the same as just increasing the input where you're destroying the kick and snare, and then you get some saturation in the quiet stuff. You can just target the quieter sounds and warm up the whole mix. I think one of the main things about the purpose of this plugin is that it's all about making your track have a more perceived loudness. So it's about increasing the RMS of the track without getting loads of extra compression sound or loads of extreme saturation sound. And as you can see in our chain here, we've got it just before our limiter. So it should reduce the amount of workload the limiter has to do and therefore get more volume, more transparently, I'd say.
And I think in the spirit of this idea of being able to control where the saturation comes in is, well, let's demonstrate by putting some music through it.
Yeah, for sure. So I've got this track here. I'm just going to play from kind of the biggest section. I tend to like to work on the loudest part of the track when I'm dialing this kind of stuff in to make sure I'm not overdoing it. It's worth noting at this point, even when the plugin's just on, the kind of default mode is actually engaged, though you might not necessarily hear what it's doing. It's doing something, and you can kind of see there's some action down at the bottom here as it's kind of starting to saturate this. So let's, where should we start, Warren? We should just turn the drive up and see what it sounds like?
Turn the drive up, yeah, absolutely. And then start shifting in a multi situation and showing what the low shift, mid and high shift. What I found interesting about it was to sort of do what I usually do, which is go a little bit more aggressively, then dial it back.
Yeah. Sure. Shall I turn match on just to get our volumes even for the moment?
The match is an interesting thing, as Josh was saying, because the match will allow you, obviously, to keep the RMS somewhat the same, so you don't have a perceived loudness. So you can focus more on what it's doing, where it's coming in, driving. But at the same time, it must be said that one of the, probably the main reason for using something like this is to actually increase levels. So use the match so you know you're not fooling yourself with volume, but also be aware that, you know, because it has a clip function, because it has this ability to really bring up the gain, it's only part of it. And then the other thing that Soundtheory, that Jeev explained to us, is when the match is engaged, it is doing some clever things. It's saying, well, here's the information coming in that's, you know, being treated, and here's the output. So it's always rebalancing it. Yeah. So if you've got dynamic sections between, say, a quiet verse and a loud chorus, it is artificially bringing up, you know, or leveling down, probably more importantly, a chorus so that you don't hear a perceived volume difference. So it's not something you would use when bouncing. The match is there purely as a tool, wonderfully, but a tool there so that you can understand the difference between the plugin being used and not being used.
So for the moment, I'll just have it on match and then just turn the drive up and see. Obviously too far. Nice, we can kind of just hear the default tonality of the plugin. And it's worth saying this isn't an emulation of something. It's not trying to be tape or it's not trying to be tube. It's kind of its own innovative algorithm.
It's nice of you to say tube for the American audience there. I like that.
Oh yeah, I think we were talking about it earlier. Yeah. I don't know why I'm slipping. It sounds kind of modern, but it sounds kind of memorable as well. It sounds a little bit tapey, sounds a little bit tubey, but it is doing its own thing as well.
Well, I'm glad you got this track up because you've got all these transients coming in that when it started to soften out where about you are now, I was like, that's a massive improvement. It was like, it just kind of stops those little peaky things from, it actually widens them. And I think that's a great thing about saturation, distortion, etc., is that you're adding some hair to a signal. So it's got this little pointiness coming in. But just, you know, adding that hair around it, as it were, makes those sounds feel like they've got more authority without just using purely volume to sneak through.
So let's start with this and then just start bringing in some of this offset then and see if we can start to target some of these quieter sounds. So what I'm noticing there, as I kind of brought that up, is that it feels as though it's saturating and again, somehow kind of widening the guitars. Well, I guess because the guitars are wide and they're being saturated, it feels like it's enhancing that width, but not destroying it to such an extent where the drums are really bloated and crackly and whatever.
The low mids seem to be the thing that's benefiting the most for me.
Yeah.
Maybe it's that thickness in the guitars, the mids and low mids.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, then start thinking about how we can shift this around. I'm going to move over to entirely multi down here, so we can start to see how we can control these different frequencies. It's worth noting there is a link button as well to control them all as a group. So if you get the balance right, but you want to shift it all, then you can do that. So let's just have a listen to, and let's see if we can get the low end kind of biting up a little bit more. Interesting, yeah. That's great to feel like I have control just over the kind of kick and bass there. Kind of subtle, but again, it's subtle because I'm not affecting loads of the top end. And the mid, let's see how that's kind of...
Actually sounds like there's an additional instrument going.
Yeah.
I almost feel like there's somebody hitting like a cymbal along with those guitars.
Right, yeah.
It's like a crash going on that's actually gated to the guitars going.
Well, yeah, helping to accent that kind of main...
Yeah.
That main rhythm section.
But it does make me think, we can tweak it a little bit more, but it does make me think it would be nice to take your guitar bus and stick this on the guitar bus.
Yeah, right, totally. So this isn't... obviously, it seems as though it's designed more for mastering purposes, but...
Which, of course, it would be.
Yeah, but we could use it for anything.
Yeah. So on our system uses here, now, obviously, we're running an HDX system here. We're not running this native. But still, let's take it off completely and see what happens. So...
Okay, it's sort of like 1 or 2%, isn't it? After it's settled.
It's pretty tiny. So it does mean that we can use it in many different instances. So we should leave it on this gently.
Yeah.
And then stick it on the guitar bus. My gut is, here's my gut.
Yeah.
My gut is that you don't use the low shift at all on the master bus. Keep the low end clean.
Yeah.
And use it on the guitars to get the guitar low mids to be thicker, which is improving. But have the kick be nice and clean, have the bass guitar be nice and clean.
Yeah.
But find instruments that have low mids and have low end that you want to add some, glue to, I suppose, for want of a better word. Because one of the things about saturating the low end is it can be really super pleasing, but it also can confuse low end. I personally love a really clean kick drum, bass drum, and I love a really clean low end of a bass guitar.
So I've got it over here on this guitar bus now.
To me, that's like really so much more pinpointing. But try the low shift, see if you can thicken it up a bit.
Might have to put a little bit more level into it. in terms
Agreed.
of gain staging. Yeah, it's useful sometimes just have, just a utility plugin or
I was thinking about this the other day, about some of the master bus plugins that we use to emulate stuff. And I was thinking about SSL mixing, where I am a guy on my SSL would slam it, like, pa. And there is a rounding out of transients that happens. And so it's almost like it's an analog version of clipping, but it's very nicely rounding it out. And then I got to sit in a room with Bob Clearmounting mixing, and his VUs are like this. They're just beautiful. He's not using any of that he's not using anything on his master section to make his mix better, as it were, quite frankly. What does that mean? To me, that points to the fact that he's spending more time and more detail on individual elements leading up to the master bus. And I think while these tools are amazing, if we solely use them on the master bus, we're doing ourselves a disservice as a mixer. What was great when Josh put it on that was the guitars just suddenly felt like super thick. And like I said, it was almost like there was another energy being added. But I felt like the low end was starting to get a little bit blurred. And I didn't, coming through a huge PA or something at a club, you want to hear that boom, boom. Yeah. So not that, I suppose it is a dance song.
Well, it's nice to have clean low end on the kick anyway.
Yeah.
I think it's really important to note that you can use plugins like this, and especially this one, obviously, kind of as an EQ if you wanted to, because it has that tonal shaping feature. And if you saturate a certain band more than another, you're going to enhance that band and make it stand out a bit more without having to make it kind of introducing an EQ curve into it, which might sound a bit kind of phasey or too drastic. But I've just put a trim plugin on now before Kraftur, so I can just turn it up a bit more. I'm just going to send 6 dB extra into the plugin, and then I'm just going to dial this back, so I've got a bit more control of the plugin. So yeah, I'm just going to bring the gain down to balance it. Maybe it'd be kind of interesting to see what this can do when we do put it into a limiter, and what kind of, how kind of the volume feels when we have it before and after. Because I think that's one of the main things that it will be used for. A lot of people will want to apply it to their mix bus to, again, get more transparent volume out of their track and make it kind of sound loud and big. So I'm going to put this on back to default for the moment, just so we know where we're starting. I've applied L2, so it just kind of knocks off about 1 or 2 dB. So let's try and make this feel louder without it sounding more compressed. I think that's the aim of the game, isn't it? So I'm going to start it in match mode while we bring the drive up and then rebalance. Well, actually, no, I'm just going to go by just applying it and then bringing the gain down so I can do my gain staging as I would. Let's hear the drive up. All multi.
Because it's a dense mix, it's really immediate. Yeah, it's really immediate.
Yeah, it goes straight in.
Straight in. That on and off is... Yeah, it's enormous change.
Yeah, I love that offset control. It feels like I can just control the amount of saturation that's happening to the guitars.
Yeah.
And not anything else. It's quite cool. Makes it feel so much wider.
So my gut is that you take the low shift and decrease it.
Okay, so we're getting less saturation on the lows and clean the low end up.
Because we've already done treatment to where we wanted it on the low and low mids.
Yeah.
I personally feel like there's kind of funky, clean bass on this and a nice, clean kick.
Yeah.
There's no need to do any more low and low mid distortion.
Yeah.
You've got that on the synth sound and a little bit on the guitars, and that's where I want to hear it.
Yeah, great idea. Let's pull that low shift down and kind of clean up the low end a bit more. I'm going to listen to where it is first by soloing that band. Yeah, not anything else, but just the kick and the bass guitar. Nice. And then let's bring that out.
Immediately got nicer. But you could back it back a little bit. It was like... Now I hear that. That kick's cleaned up enough.
Bit of high shift, a bit more for the...
Yeah, sure. That cymbal went... It's nice.
Yeah. I was focusing on kind of tambourine, the shakers.
Sure.
The hi-hat.
Sure, bypass. Nice.
So there is a little bit of level there.
I suppose it's in the match. A bit more excitement. Now I suppose let's bring the clip down.
Yeah. That sounds good. Quite a lot, but back it off from there. I mean, it's massively different, isn't it? So, yeah, when it's bypassed now, I'm just thinking how dynamic the kick and snare are. And they sound like they're poking above the mix in not the right way. Then with it in, sounds a lot more exciting. I mean, it's quite extreme, it's quite aggressive, but some styles of music kind of warrant that amount of...
Yeah, it's awesome.
Extreme.
It's awesome. And then, of course, we can always take that multi and back it towards dry. Should we try playing
exactly.
with that?
So we can bring it so it's not... Yeah, bring some parallel into it, basically. Yeah, there's a sweet spot, isn't there?
Yeah. Maybe back just a little bit towards multi. It's nice.
That is nice.
It's one of my favourite things to do with plugins, quite frankly, is to go in there, fall in love with the crazy things that you've just done, and then back it off and realise there's the perfect place. By the way, that's Josh playing all the instruments and singing.
That is, yeah. I think what that has highlighted that clip function and that kind of specific drive we have going on between these different bands is that I can get the track a lot louder without it sounding bad, without it sounding, really aggressively limited. It doesn't seem, I can't really hear the limiting too drastically right now.
No, I don't think it's barely doing anything. I think the clip has really helped.
Yeah, it's taking like 2 dB off the limit on the limiter, but...
It's that, it's like 1 to 2. Yeah, 1 to 2.
Yeah.
Minus 1.7, yeah. And that's the peak of it.
That's loud.
That's nice. I think you could bring your funky guitar down ever so slightly. We got a little carried away with that, and it smothered your vocal a little bit.
Yeah, definitely.
Look at that, now the vocal just comes out. It's great. Print it.
Yeah, print it.
Woo! We love these keys, but we want to thicken up the low mids just to kind of give it some girth, I suppose.
Yeah. So this is the sound.
In a perfect world, I want to attach that 700 with some 250 to 400-ish kind of
Yeah.
I want to attach those two things. It feels like the stays fairly constant, but the depending on your voicing, is not there. So let's see if we can attach it.
Maybe it's a good thing to kind of focus on that low band, to see if we can get that dialed in. So I'm just going to bring that in, and then just solo that band. So is that the kind of range you mean, or is it a bit lower? Kind of there, isn't it? More.
Yeah.
That kind of heft. Yeah, that's much meatier.
How ones have we put the drive up even more?
That's it.
There you go.
So we bring that back in, out of solo.
It's gluing it together, but I want more volume out of it. So I suppose let's send more volume to it of just that lower end.
Yeah, so we could EQ
into it.
Into the saturator to kind of enhance that band.
But we need a high pass away from the bass and the kicks, so probably about 60-ish.
Okay, let's bring that up to about 60-something, whatever, and then boost around. Well, let's have a listen actually.
Come up a little higher.
That's it. Yeah, that's really worked. That's kind of helped shape the bite and the low end of it. Yeah, I mean, that is one thing with this plugin, is that it doesn't have individual volume controls of each of these frequencies, which is something they might decide to work on in the future. We'll see, but it's nice that we can just EQ into it. Obviously, you can EQ after it and really sculpt that. In fact, it might be good to kind of pull that over to multi and then get some more.
Put it closer to multi, and to be honest, I'd put a little bit of compression on it beforehand as well, because when you do that, it's a little subtle. That, yep. I think in this instance, we need to take that high and mid shift and just actually take it down slightly.
Yeah, so it's just affecting that low end.
Yeah. Because you've got that dancing, funky guitar.
It's nice, it's clean.
We don't want this to be in the way of the vocal as well.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
And all the ambience is adding all this extra air anyway.
Yeah, I mean, this sound is like it's a Korg M1. It's like a magic piano kind of sound. And it's called magic piano, yeah. And it's got this really nice, like, shimmery top end. So I guess by bringing the mid and the high shift away, we're not going to crunch up that clean, glassy top end, but we're just going to add some more kind of, heft into the sound.
Great.
Let's bounce it back into the tracks. I'm just going to unsolo it and then bring it back in.
Dreaming of you, and even though I'm now not living it, tonight I'll be dreaming of you.
All right.
Great.
Cool. Yeah, that's worked
I
really
love
well.
those kinds of subtleties.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's nice to be able to treat each instrument and give it the kind of attention that it deserves and focus on each of these different frequencies. with a different mindset.
So we're going to listen to some stuff with Alex Gordon as well, who's another engineer here at the wonderful Brighton Electric. So for people to know, first of all, if I just close this down, this whole session has 0 plugins on it except for one vocal verb. You'll see a little time adjuster here just to put the snare in phase with the overheads, but that is it. There's no EQ, there's no compression, and there's only one plugin for reverb. So let's have a quick listen to the track without Kraftur on it.
I was blind, didn't know how far I could fall.
Probably the exact opposite of what people would expect for a clipper saturation plugin to be used on, which I kind of like. And when I asked you about like what would you typically use it on, you actually suggested things like drums.
Yeah.
So
a lot of the music I work on, I do use a lot of distortion on drums, and this is definitely on the lighter side of things, I guess. So you wouldn't maybe expect to go there.
That's just why I want to do it.
Yeah. Exactly.
So here's the drum sound, recorded at Sunset Sound Studio 3. Again, no compression, no EQ on the mix whatsoever. Just a time alignment on the snare to be in phase with that overheads. So what I'm wondering is like, we could try something on the kick. There's a lot of attack from the D112, and then there's the FET 47. FET 47 actually isn't really doing that much. Together they're it's adding some nice weight, but it's not maybe giving as much sustain as you would anticipate. So we're going to now bust these two kick elements together. I want to see if we can extend the low frequency response and just dirty up that kick. First of all, no drive, no offset, no knee. There's a few things to think about in this plugin. First of all, so if I play it here, down below here is the before, and on the right-hand side is the after. So one more time. And you'll see at the moment, because there's no processing going on, nothing is happening. What we can do is we can drive the whole thing. Now immediately it's getting louder. So we have a match button here. So we hit the match. Go to bypass. That's a really good auto gain function. I think it works really, really well. So immediately with the drive, it is grabbing that transient, isn't it? It's kind of pushing it in, keeping the volume the same, but you know, the sustain's getting better.
Yeah, it's more knocky as well.
Yeah. So let's bypass it. But I would argue it is too aggressive. So let's just see if we can clean up. We're going to full multi here, so we're going to see what these do. So we can clean up the low end a bit. Bring it the other way. So it turns it into an electronic kick. So now we've gone absolutely nuts. The drive is all the way up. We've got the offset and the knee, so we're trying to bypass. Actually sounds like a really good kick drum, but let's see what it sounds like in the track. definitely like the difference between being polite and being just a little bit more aggressive.
Yeah, it seems to work quite nicely in blending the dry back in.
I mean, it's an interesting way of extending the low end response. It really is quite interesting for that. So I'm going to hear it in the track, full track.
I never thought I would be caught by love so helplessly again. I can't see a reason why for routine under falling skies again. I never thought that I would be caught by love so helplessly again. I can't see a reason why for routine under falling skies.
I think what it's done is it's made it more interesting, a bit more old school. Whether it's better or worse is really comes down to preference.
It doesn't feel as drastically just like saturated when it's in the mix.
Yeah.
It feels like it's just bringing the kick out. Goes to show you can get away with quite a lot of... Because that sounds pretty saturated. In the mix, it kind of just...
I never thought I would be caught by love so helplessly again. I can't see a
I like it. I'm going to head towards dry, like 2% more. I feel like it gives it a little bit more character, charisma, something, you know what I mean? Maybe I'm using the wrong words, but makes it a little bit more interesting for me. I think for me, what this is going to be good for is like taking stuff that I think a little bit less well recorded, or at least less tubes, less transformers, less stuff, and see if we can add some interest to it. Because this track has actually got quite a lot of that. Might be the best thing for this. I'm going to take the low down so I can just distort it a bit more. That's immediately better. That's a total winner.
I never thought I would be caught by love so helplessly again. I can't see a reason why for routine under falling sky.
Taking a low shift. So I went down to 160 hertz, probably can go slightly lower, and made it so that the low end isn't being affected as much, brought the low shift down, cranked the mid shift crank it as high as possible. Get that distorted. It's a bit over the top, so then brought it back to the dry more than the multi. And once again, we went to the multi because we're selecting those frequencies.
I never thought I would be caught by love so helplessly again.
Yeah, driving the mids a little bit,
that's nice.
cleaning up the low end means that there's no perceptible volume difference in the bass in the mix, but what it's doing is just allowing some of that attack to come through. I think these are one of these things, I know everybody's using them on the master bus, and I get that. And that's, I think all the demos we watched, everybody just clamped it on the master bus. And that's probably where it's going to get used a lot. But I feel like if I'm going to go through individual instruments like this and choose where to use it and shape it a little bit, especially on a mix which has got no compression or EQ, is sort of doing, because so many of the great records that I grew up on are all printed the way that you want to hear them.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it seems to be doing it really well. Like,
Yeah.
I know we started playing around with it on a mix.
Yeah.
And that was cool. It was definitely doing something interesting. But you're only going to just get more control from kind of putting it subtly maybe on different things,
Right.
as opposed to everywhere. But,
So
cool,
for
they can be used
us,
for both.
I want to pull up one of your mixes in a second, and then let's have you play with it, because I know you were talking about using saturation on snares. So let's do that. But I like where we've gone. So here we'll play the same section again with and without it on kick and on bass.
I never thought I would be caught by love so helplessly again. I can't see a reason why for rooting under falling skies again. I never thought that I would be caught by love so helplessly again.
Yeah.
I like the sort of top end it's adding to the kick.
Yep, definitely. Let's do a quick kind of recap. So the offset and the knee, we actually liked it cranked all the way unless you really wanted to go nuts on it, just because they seem to be doing the same thing. They seem to be, so if you take this all the way off, the knee is basically, the saturation starts to come in later and later and later. But it's interesting because it's still grabbing the transient, but it's adding this bloom, which is exaggerated when I bring the offset up. I suppose the knee is like a knee on a compressor, which frankly sometimes seems quite subtle. I usually find I'm doing more with the attack and release time that's so obvious, and then the knee is just like adding little tiny stuff. But in this instance, I think it's really good on the kick because it allows it to kind of go boom and have that blooming low end.
And they seem quite subtle when they're used sort of separately.
Yeah.
But in tandem with each other,
Yeah.
they seem to really do quite a lot.
And when we read the manual, it seems like they talk about offset and knee at the same time.
Yeah.
So they're definitely designed to be used together.
together.
Yeah. We put the drive up to maximum basically because then we can just use the dry and the multi-function. You can actually use the dry to blend back in. You could use the drive a little bit more subtly and go to the full multi or something, basically do the same thing. And that's a lot of with many of these controls, is they sort of variations on a theme. But I just went full crank on the drive and then went back to the dry itself. Now, to remind everybody, the single is not a single band, it is the overall. When you go to multi, it allows you to control these three independently of each other. And again, the other thing is the frequency response that you can see up here is what works down here. You'll see the attack coming here, which is, around about 3 to 5K, probably about 5K here. And then you hear the low end kind of coming late. So it's really interesting. It's like, it's giving you an idea of where it's compressing the frequencies. And of course, low frequencies are longer and in this instance, later. So that's the before, and here's the after. Let's load up something so we can hear it on one of your snares. So what do we have? We have one of your sessions.
Yeah, so it's just a session
Recorded here.
recorded here
Marvellous.
in Studio One by an artist called Ed Sansom. The song's called Call Me. And this is, it's not even released yet. It's not even been mixed yet. So this is
That's good.
This is as tracked.
I like that. Again, no plugins were harmed in the making of this recording.
No, there's a few things here and there, but nothing. Yeah,
Nothing on the guitars.
Nothing
A couple of
major.
things on the bass. Nothing on the drum.
probably some vocal stuff. I tend to do bits and bobs while I'm tracking, but
I want to hear you said you like saturating the snare. So let's have a listen.
yeah. So yeah, this kind of song, I mean, we can get away with a fair amount of distortion probably. The drums. And yeah, let's maybe just try it on the snare.
It's nice, little polite. You can mess it up a bit.
Wow, instantly just like way more attack.
Do you want to put the match on so it's not a volume thing?
Yeah, it's just sharpening up the top. I mean, you can't really push this too far. It just sounds.
At the moment, the multi and the single is going to be the same because you haven't adjusted
Yeah.
anything on the multi,
Let's just try that just because on earlier it seemed to sound a bit different, weirdly.
which it doesn't now.
She doesn't now.
So should we put the low end back in?
Yeah, so we can kind of
Clean up the low
clean
end.
up the low. I quite like pushing mids.
So compared with the kick, where we had hardly any mid stuff going on until we dropped it lower, now there's a lot of
I don't know how high that's going.
quite high apparently.
I don't feel it needs much of that. Maybe a little less of that drive.
So now you're balancing both. You're balancing the amount of drive and also the amount of blend between the dry and the...
I mean, I do find with drums, certainly on close mics, I'm often happy to just sort of go for compressing the whole thing or distorting the whole thing and not necessarily blending the dry back in.
Yeah.
See how it sounds kind of in. Yeah, I mean, probably just turn the snare mic up a bit. Definitely adding like top end kind of crispiness.
Yeah, crispiness. I'm hearing a bit more bottom snare as well coming up.
Yeah, it feels like the bottom mic has come up as well.
Yeah.
We could try play with that offset.
Feels like it needs the knee to make it work, doesn't it? It feels like a blend of the two.
Yeah, because that feels similar. Whereas that starts to feel like it's heading in a softer direction. Quite nice. Out of interest, what's it like just going full single?
Let's go between full single, full multi, see what the difference is.
So that top end is quite different.
Yeah. Let's treat the whole band equally.
So that's whole band equally.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely crispier, which I could maybe.
I feel like if you put the low shift all the way down, does it bring the body back in? There's not a lot of low in the snare, is there?
No.
There's not a lot to gain. I would probably bring in some of the dry, maybe.
Yeah, I feel like we're missing some of that sort of lower mid sort of weight.
That's better. How's it in the mix? I know it's a rough.
Yeah, it's cool. It's definitely adding that
Yeah.
bitiness.
Could be good on the rooms because we're going to control the excessive cymbals.
So we've got a lot of those
Yeah. A lot of
cymbals. Again, it's quite nice to sort of try and get the snare to sort of get more excited in the room, but not the cymbals. I mean, it's not lessening the cymbals, but it's not. Well, I feel like we're able to get the kick and snare, certainly the snare, to sound more distorted without making the cymbals worse.
Let's just crank the high shift for a second. There you go.
Yeah, the cymbals don't sound overbearing with that level of distortion. I like the attack.
Definitely a lot less politer.
Yeah, the snare just goes from feeling really short.
Drums sound so much more exciting, yeah.
Right on the kick as well.
Oh yeah. But you've got so much attack on it that you can get away with this. I didn't have this so much attack on my printed kick.
I don't know what that mic would have been. It probably was a...
Was it like a beta? Beta 91 or
Could have
something?
been a 91... No,
SM91 lying in there or
it
something?
might have been a beta 52.
Okay.
But it could have been...
The beta has that more metallic,
that kind of
neodymium kind of attack on it, yeah.
Which is useful to cut through. I feel like on the snare I would just want it more just a bit more of that mid-range. definitely like the extension of the snare in the room.
Yeah, it's huge.
That's kind of,
Yeah.
that's doing the most for me.
Call me back tonight. 'Cause I'm burning up inside.
There was one bit actually, I thought there's a kind of solo-y bit later. That could be fun. So I love adding...
That's mid-range city, yeah.
I love sort of distorting things and saturating things to the point that they're just like really compressed, so that they just come in and they...
Well, that's very mid-range, very saturated. See if you can make it even nuttier. Keep going. There you go, that's awesome. I like that.
That's really cool.
That's really cool. Yeah, yeah. I like that because
Right out.
because it becomes like a whole new, unique guitar sound.
Totally.
Yeah, that's awesome. Let's try it on the overall mix.
Cry for us. 'Cause you left me high and dry like you did last night. I've been drinking all day and night, trying to get you out.
When you first brought it on a little bit, I thought everything got better.
The sound that you
Going about there.
can you call me back tonight. 'Cause I'm burning up inside. I keep crawling back to be taken for.
I mean, yeah, certainly with the whole mix, subtlety is probably...
You made your bed, and I can't forget. And I cried for us. 'Cause you left me high and dry like you did last night. I've been drinking all day and night, trying to get you out of my mind. You believe.
Yeah, it seems on the whole mix, to me, it feels like as soon as you go into the multi,
Yeah.
it kind of things start getting overwhelmed. And I quite like it when it's either that blend, well,
Yeah.
I suppose that's not even, when we had it kind of here,
Yeah.
a bit of the dry and more sort of, maybe, I mean, let's see what just single is like, just using that.
And I can't forget. And I cried
Feels more natural.
for us. 'Cause you left me high and dry like you did last night.
I think in every case though, I'm always enjoying a bit of the dry, that parallel.
You made your bed, and I can't forget. And I cried.
Much better. Now go back.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, it's like when I was using the Culture Vulture, Thermionic Culture Vulture, we would absolutely trash it on a parallel bus and then bring it in. I found that when I was putting everything just through the Thermionic Culture Vulture, I could never really get exactly what I wanted. But if I totally destroyed it and made it sound ultra disgustingly exciting, but totally unusable, and then blended it back in, that's when it sounded better.
Yeah.
I couldn't put a full mix through. I could never commit to the whole thing. So this idea here with the single, whether using the multi or the single,
Yeah,
going back to the dry makes the most amount of sense to me.
definitely. I think, yeah, certainly with across the whole mix,
Yeah.
I think,
There's very few things I trust on a mix. So far, I'm trusting this.
yeah, I mean, it's easy as well to kind of overthink things and, you know, not want to try things because, I don't know, it's, yeah, you think, oh, distorting the whole mix, is that allowed? But
Which is all that consoles and tubes and everything we use do anyway.
Well,
They just
exactly.
add saturation and, colour.
yeah,
And
so if it sounds good.
I think that's the thing with these guys with Soundtheory is they've got 2 plugins for a reason. It takes them a bleeding long time to get it right.
Sure.
We should try and find a couple of 2 tracks and just see what we can do now on 2 tracks. Now that we've had some fun with the individual elements. So we've got 3 mixes. We've got a Little Empire track mixed on an SSL 9 years ago nearly. Wow. We've got a track for mastering from yours. And then this is older, so so then we throw in the Jonah Smith.
Caught by love, so helpless.
So 3 quite different tracks, which is good. So we're going to take these 3 quite different tracks and see what we can add with Kraftur. Which on the low end setting, it's pumping.
I was sick.
So if a knee and offset will help.
In my heart.
Jesus, that's really pumping.
I would lie in bed at night and dream of you, tearing me apart.
Try the low shift.
I never thought that I would be caught by love so helplessly again. And I can't see a reason why for routine under falling skies again. I never thought that I would be caught by love so helplessly again. I can't see a reason why I'm rooting under falling skies again.
Amazing how it's really smashing that piano. It's crazy. Let's just bypass it a second. Pumping a little bit with the piano, maybe?
I was sick. I felt that pain in my heart. I would lie in bed at night and dream of you, tearing me apart. I never thought that I would be caught by love so helplessly again. And I can't see a reason why for routine under falling skies again. I never thought that I would be caught by love so helplessly again. I can't see a reason why for routine under falling skies again. I never thought that I would be caught by love so helplessly again. I can't see a reason why for routine under falling skies again.
So it's the offset in the knee that's giving it that pump. And now we're really getting to hear with full range stuff how the offset in the knee works. It's just got this kind of crown, the way it's like exploding out the back end, which is probably why it was quite fun for the kick.
Yeah, that's what was adding that kind of bloom.
Yeah, the bloom, and then bringing it back to the dry, we were able to bring back the attack of the kick, but also have that bloom at the low end. So
I was sick.
Okay. I mean, to me, that's like, long as the low gets out of the way and isn't being destroyed too much. And I shifted like really high, 570 hertz. So I called the low end like low mids and below, because there was so much low mids in the piano, of course the bass, and of course the kick. But the piano had so much low mids. So now it's letting all of that go through. I moved that not that much higher, so 3.8K up. So now the mids is between 570. I can probably shift this down a bit now. Back to 350.
I was sick. I felt that pain in my heart.
That's cool. That's fun. I feel like I would mix. This is just a mix, one of the many mixes we've done using different plugins and stuff like that. This one is smothered in verb, and the way the saturation is working on this is exaggerating some of that verb, which is also already a little bit excessive for me. But is it kind of folding it back in? Maybe I can.
I would be caught by love so helplessly again. I can't see a reason why corrupting under.
It's actually kind of cool.
It's a bit more exciting.
Yeah, it's a bit more exciting, and it's got rid of some of that sort of 700, which I don't like in vocals anyway.
I would be caught by love so helplessly again. I can't see a reason why corrupting under.
You know, it does remind me. I blame myself. It reminds me of the Culture Vulture. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I've never used the Culture Vulture plugin. You ever tried that?
I've not a plugin.
I've used the hardware. I have the hardware version.
Yeah, so it's doing a similar thing to the upper mids.
Yeah,
That kind of bitey.
yeah. Without being
Kind of-
square wavy.
Sure.
It doesn't have that kind of thing where lots of saturations have this kind of like. I think used sparingly and right, this is going to be quite a popular plugin. I have no idea how much it is. It says Kraftur is available now and is being offered at an introductory price of $69 until September the 1st. Okay, I think this has been interesting in real time, playing with this and then getting to the price. I think it's a no-brainer at $69.
That's pretty good.
That's like 50 something pounds. Yeah. It's one of the few times I've used saturation on a master bus and actually not minded it at all.
I also quite like the simplicity of it. Sometimes I find, like even with the multi-band function, like not overthinking things. I mean, I know you can move the frequencies, but I kind of like that they're separate, because it kind of means you only go to move it if you really feel like you need to, as opposed to.
Sure.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Just
I do.
keeping it a bit more.
Well, it's a bit like I like Sheps' plugin because all the frequency bands are the ones that everybody uses.
Sure.
And he took all the features of the plugins that it's modeled on and used all the right bits of things. And I think that anything that's got that sort of logic to like, hey, there's all these infinite different things that you can do, but you're never going to use 99% of them, is kind of a waste of time.
Well, I find that especially if I open a plugin for the first time that I've never used and I haven't got something I quite like.
Yeah.
Pretty quick.
Yeah.
I'm gonna
Sure.
probably close it and move on. So if you can get something good quickly, it's.
I agree. I've said this about studio equipment. When I went into a music store as a kid, and the compressor that they were trying to sell us was Alesis 3630. And it was a single unit, and it had like what felt like 500 knobs on the front. Probably had 30 or 25 or something. Whatever, I had a crap ton. And then I went to my first proper recording studio, and there was an 1176, and it had like input and output, was fixed threshold, two ratio, ratio buttons, and attack and release. And it was this big, and it was dumb. And the engineer would lean over and go, done.
Yeah.
And then you're sitting there with this little fiddly Alesis and pressing all these buttons trying to make it sound good. You realize that when you're being creative, you want tools that are straightforward to use. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to listen to it on the little Empire track. So I totally destroyed it. We'll crank both these up for the pumping. Actually, it's not doing that much of because it's so full frontal. I immediately like the mid shift cranked. I just think it adds excitement in there. And again, this is totally over the top at the moment, but this is on purpose. Like that. I mean, so we got like 16% of the destruction that I've just put on there. I'm going to crank it for schnizzles. I mean, it's really, it feels like there's like a lexicon verb on the snare now that's all even prettier and whatever. So maybe I'll just pull it back a little bit. On the highs, just maybe that much. Maybe the mid's down a little bit more. I've seem to be falling into this trap, like it or not, where the offset and the knee are pushed forward to the right, so it's kind of got this blooming effect, and then using it in parallel and bringing it back to the dry. So it just kind of adds a halo of distortion rather than just softening transients. I mean, it is softening transients, but by bringing it back to the dry, it allows the transients to come through.
Yeah.
It seems like that's what I like. That's what it seems to make the most amount of sense. I'm sure everybody's going to have their own way of using it, but that makes sense to me.
What's it like if the offset and knee are back at naught as you have everything else now? Yeah. See how... Yeah, I mean...
Doesn't seem to be doing much anymore. It's there, but it's sort of... It just seems like I've put a little bit of distortion across the whole mix. It doesn't seem as exciting.
Yeah, it doesn't feel as sort of... like time related. It's not like extending anything but it's kind of, the transients are definitely like sharper, but maybe too much. Yeah,
I think this is going to be its beauty. To be honest, I find with most plugins these days, if they do something, you know, they're a multi-band compressor, they're a distortion, some kind of saturation, in this instance obviously clipping as well, I'm always going nuts and then backing it off. Rather than spending ages trying to subtly do things. I feel like I just want it to be as exciting as possible. And it seems like a much quicker way of working for my brain, at least. You know what I like about this, and I think similar with Golfos as well, is like I don't feel like it's completely changing the way things are, and that might sound stupid to say, but often when I use fancy plugins on my master bus, I feel like all the characteristics of the song get annihilated too much. I can never understand people mixing into like really fancy multibands and stuff like that, because I feel like it softens everything and everything becomes even and pretty and perfect, and suddenly all of everything that I've tried to do in my mix to make things angular and jump out is gone. And this isn't doing that.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's really versatile.
Yeah, good job. Good job, Soundtheory. We like this. We do like this. It's great value for money. I hope you've enjoyed this video. This has been an interesting one for us because we wanted to do more of an exploration. And we watched some of the other videos, which were all wonderful, and they were very informative about what the individual controls were doing. But didn't really give many sound examples except for like taking a 2-track mix of something really super modern and, you know, virtual instruments and stuff like that. Where all these tracks are very organic and kind of allow you to see what happens when things hit things a little bit more unevenly. Because one of the things with the electronic stuff, which is great, of course, but if the kick is always doing this, You know what I mean? It's like very easy to go, yeah, always even. You hear how it's distorting, but with something, these tracks, you know, you want to make sure that it's going to deliver when something has actual dynamics in it.
For sure. Yeah.
Thanks a lot, Alex. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
So thanks, Brian Electric. Thanks, Alex, for doing this with us. There will be a link down below where you can go and check out the plugin a bit more. This has been a lot of fun. I think this is a recommend. I do. What do you think?
Yeah, I would be sure to use it.
Excellent. There we go. So long, farewell, auf Wiedersehen, au revoir, adios, goodbye. Thanks, everybody.